This week's episode of Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico is brought to you by Baby Loves Tacos and its two locations in Pittsburgh, PA. The original hot spot right smack in the middle of Little Italy on Liberty Avenue in Bloomfield, and their newer location in Millville right over the 40th Street Bridge. Zach, Kat, Kaz, John, Ben, and the rest of those groovy cats serve up the best Mexican-style food this side of Texarkana. I don't even know why I said that. I usually say the Mississippi River, but I changed it. Huge burritos, tasty bowls, the finest tacos around. Baby Loves Tacos will fill you up and make you smile. So when in Pittsburgh, head over to Baby Loves Tacos and tell them Twisted Rico sent you. Baby Loves Tacos, where everybody eats. Joining us this week on the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast is Ben Deily, one of the original members of the Lemonheads. So to get things started, here's a track that Ben wrote on the Lick album entitled Ever on Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. Well, hello. Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. You just heard the track Ever from one of my personal all-time favorite records, Lick, by the Lemonheads, which was released in 1989 on Tang Records. Please welcome Ben Deily to the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast. How's it going, Ben?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, before we had Ben on, I was meant to talk to him about the pronunciation of his name, because I hear everyone call Ben Daly. I've been hearing that for years, but it actually is Ben Deily. So I'm glad we got that right for starters.
No worries. I've gotten Daily, Deely. I got Deity once on a library card. Anything you can imagine. Actually, again, my band roommate Evan gets his name mispronounced too, so it's no one's immune, one of them things.
I got to ask you a question before we get into some good music stuff, because this is like what everyone's talking about. How have you been handling everything that's been going on with the pandemic and 2020 in general? Because it's been like a bizarre year.
It definitely has been. It's been an interesting one. I'm kind of in a strange, or rather, I suppose it's a good position in that I've been working remotely for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So that part of it actually involved zero change for me. So I was already basically accustomed to doing everything over, Zoom, and got Google Hangouts back when those were a thing, and that sort of stuff. So, I think more than anything else is just saying, all of us who read, like back in the 90s, you remember the book The Coming Plague, and there was another book called The Hot Zone.
Yes.
And anybody read, it's like a lot of nonfiction about pathogens and zoonotic pathogens, and basically the fact that everyone in the medical and epidemiological professions were all basically saying, hey, you know what, this is going to happen, it's just a matter of time. So I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I got my wife same way. We're both kind of, when this looked like it was jumping off, I remember I started, I was paying careful attention to the news. I'm telling my family and my loved ones, hey, you might think about, this is like, February this year. And I'm saying, like, for instance, I started saying, you know what, I'm not going to be going to big events. And, the usual, I got mocked and taunted and et cetera. And I said, oh, well, okay, I did what I could. And so my wife and I have been hunkered down the whole time. And, we, another place we got lucky is we both have done first responder training through the civilian emergency response team thing called CERT. It's a federal thing. You can get it for free, the training, if you want, from your local fire department or Red Cross or whatever. Anyway, so we had a whole bunch of N95 masks already.
You were prepared.
When things kicked off, we were kind of ready. I mean, we're not like preppers by any stretch of the imagination, but we were ready for. We've lived in California on and off so many years. When you're ready for earthquakes, you have the masks and you have the gloves if you're going to be trying to take care of people.
Stand in the doorway.
Yeah,
I lived out there for 14 years, so believe me, I was there during the Northridge earthquake in 1993. So I've seen some. I know exactly what you mean. It's funny having you on the show because I'm not joking, but your level of intelligence is very high because you're a Harvard grad. I know that. You actually beat out Ellie V from the Charms, who went to Vassar. She was the smartest guest I had, but you just kind of hopped over Ellie V. She won't take it personally.
Oh, no. I doubt it, but yeah.
I hope I'm not forgetting.
Man, we played a show at Vassar with Guar. We opened for Guar. Yeah. It's
really funny how those cool little, like, small, liberal colleges get, like, bands like Guar to play. That's hilarious, man.
I don't think they get away with it today, but, back then.
Yeah, Carnegie Mellon, when I lived in Pittsburgh, they always had really interesting, heavy punk, hardcore bands, and I was like, wow, it's just, they've got the budget too, the colleges, so, that kind of makes sense. But I just had to throw that little Harvard. I want to talk about Harvard later, but I figured I'd get it in early. So have you listened to a lot of music, and like what did you do when you weren't, because we're kind of locked down, and what was your lockdown secret?
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is I work constantly, so I kind of looked with a little bit of jealousy at all my friends who were talking about, I'm binge watching this, I'm binge watching that, and how are you passing the time? And I'm like, are you freaking kidding? Like, I work like 8+ hours a day, more or less every day. I mean, sometimes including weekends, and I have for years. So I didn't really. That was the weird thing, was besides really upping our protocols in terms of spray. You get a little bottle of that 70% isopropyl alcohol. You put in a little spray bottle, spray it on your hands, spray it on whatever you gotta. When you come and go, you can sanitize your hands. You obviously wash them. You don't touch your face. You wear the mask. So besides that, it's weird. I got to admit, not an awful lot changed in my daily routine. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, you're very good. I know you're not in the medical profession, but you just gave us like a Fauci type update there. That was really good. I like that.
I tell you though, that's like from day one, and that's my wife again, Lisa, who's the bass player with me in
I know Lisa.
Drag, and she really kind of figured out from the beginning a few little simple things that we could do to make into habits that have kind of helped us keep going. So yeah, I think in terms of passing the time, I am always really, really hopeful that I'm going to end up with a few minutes here or there to, mess around on, play guitar for a few minutes or do something other than, working for a living. So I've been very, very lucky in that I've been employed the whole time.
That's great, man.
I started a new job on Monday, so yeah, so it's kept me busy. But yeah, I mean, whenever I have spare time, I'm basically yelling and screaming to anyone who will listen to take this seriously.
I'm with you right there,
it hasn't
man.
Worked, but
yeah, I'm with you though, man. I am like totally like right now. I'm all alone in this room, and when we walk around the building or whatever here, we're wearing masks. We're like being as safe as you could possibly be. But can we go all the way back to 1986 for a few minutes here?
No problem. It was I'd rather be in '86, all things considered. So yeah.
So you and Evan Dando and some famous director. I'm talking about Jesse Peretz, who anyone that knows Girls, Orange is the New Black. He's directed a bunch of shows. The three of you guys formed the band and were later joined by Doug. I hope I can pronounce his name right. Tracton?
It's Tracton, yeah.
Tracton.
And actually, you got to go back a little further because Evan and I started the band, just the two of us, in about '85.
Okay, tell me about that. Tell me all about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were, I guess we're juniors in high school, and there was a drum kit in the high school that belonged to the jazz band, and they stored it underneath some stairs in this tiny, weird-looking room. And we would go in there during lunch break or whatever, and one of us would play the drums, the other one would play guitar, and we'd switch back and forth. And so I'd play guitar and sing on my songs that I'd written. Evan would play guitar and sing on the songs he'd written. Whoever wasn't singing would play drums. And made a lot of noise, pissed off the janitor, Mike, who was an awesome guy. He was very patient with us. But we did that for a while. We recorded a demo tape, actually, I think with 2 songs. I think they were both my songs. Yeah, and they were terrible. And that tape was like, we did it on a 4-track, and that's lost to time. Though I do still have, I think I have the little card that went with the cassette. I have a scan of that somewhere. But anyway, so we were doing that, dicking around with that for a while. And, I go over to his, I mean, we have been kind of best buddies for years.
What neighborhood are we talking together. What neighborhood are we talking about? Like, where'd you go to high school?
This is weirdness. This is a strange school at the corner of Comm Ave and Dartmouth called the Commonwealth School.
Right.
And it was founded by Charles Merrill, the Merrill Lynch type guy.
Wow.
Or rather, the son of Charlie Merrill, the Merrill Lynch guy. And so this guy, again, had a lot of money. He decided he wanted to found a school, basically make sure that almost everyone there was on scholarship and pluck people from various kinds of urban schools and put them in this place where he figured he'd give people, a kind of a shot at better, I don't know what, like really rigorous educational standards. I mean, it was pretty brutal. Like I walked in that place. I had really never done homework, and like the first day, freshman year, I'm doing like 5-6 hours of homework a night, so that kind of sucked. But it was an interesting place. I tell you that much.
But it was you and Evan Dando. That's really funny.
Yeah, and and so Evan lived. Evan's mom had a place on Beacon Street, and I lived in Cambridge. So, I'd take in the subway eventually we got this crappy van that I inherited, which became the Lemonheads tour van, and I used to drive that at like parking in those alleys in the back bay.
Right.
Like if you're sneaky, you can get away with it. So, but anyway, yeah. So there we were 2 of us, and as I always say, Congress had not yet passed the historic White Stripes Act that legalizes 2-person bands. So we figured we got to have a drummer. So we found, actually, know what? We were like, we don't need a drummer. We're drummers, both of us. So we need a bass player. So we looked for the one guy we knew who actually owned a bass. And that was Jesse, because he was in jazz band, and we knew he owned a bass.
He went to the same high school?
Punk rock. Yeah. No, that's where all this started.
That's cool.
No, this is all, so we said, hey, want you to play bass with us. So he sort of, he was playing jazz then, but, our songs were not exactly tough to master. So he played bass, and we then all of a sudden we're a trio with the drummer and guitar player switching every couple songs. And that's how we played that's how we did our first bunch of recordings. That's how we recorded half of the first album.
Hate Your Friends.
We did our first shows. Yeah. Right. So,
well, I know I know on the credits it says that you played drums on some songs and Evan played drums on some songs. Did you guys meet Curtis Casella from Tang Records during that time? Like, how did that escalate to where you ended up getting to the point where you made their Hate Your Friends record?
Well, that was all Jesse, because Jesse was even back then, especially back then, he was a hustler, and he knew how to kind of make things happen. And so if Evan and I were writing the songs, which we were, he was pretty much handling everything else. So
he was the manager. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, basically, and he I think he met Curtis through the Record Hospital, that radio show on WHRB.
HRB, yeah.
And so like he introduced us to Curtis, and he booked our first show, whatever, don't tell me, August 19th, 1986, the first show we ever played at the Rat.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. And without Jesse, like nothing would have happened. Evan and I would have just sort of sat around doing our thing. So,
interesting. I did not know that. I was in California in 1986, so I missed that show, but I did. You guys immediately had a buzz going. Doug, how did Doug become part of the band?
Okay, so 86, we all graduated high school, and literally within a day or two, we went into the studio with Tom Hamilton, who was our engineer on a bunch of stuff, and I've worked with him a lot, and he's awesome. And he's still, I think he's still doing a home studio thing. So if you're looking for someone, you should call up Tom Hamilton. But anyway, we had some time booked with him that Jesse had set up. We went in, we recorded all the songs that went on the first EP and a bunch of the songs that were on side 1 of Hate Your Friends. And then in the fall, everybody started college. And so I was going to school locally, and I had a roommate, this guy. Actually, I had a terrible, awful roommate. I won't bore you with stories of him, but he had a can of hairspray the size of a fire extinguisher, and he would like drench himself in Dracar Noir every day. It was the only time I ever lived on my college campus. It was for about 3 weeks, and then I left and lived with my girlfriend instead.
This is at Harvard?
No, this was Brandeis. As a freshman, I went to Brandeis. I transferred to Harvard. Okay. Because Brandeis, I got sick of the scene. But and Brandeis is where, again, was good, though, because at Brandeis, I met this guy, Doug Tracton, who was basically the only other punk on campus. And I said, hey, do you play an instrument? He said, I play drums. I said, great, we need a drummer. Then we can have 2 guitars. As Lou Reed says, 2 guitars, drums, and bass. You can't beat it. So the other thing that happened at Brandeis was, I think Doug knew somebody on the student activities, whatever, and so we got to open for the Ramones there. So it was like us and the Ramones.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was like we played, and then we left the stage, and then the frickin' Ramones came out. We actually saw them backstage because we had backstage areas, and they were standing there, kind of like, Night of the Living Dead. They were just sort of standing and staring into space, because this is 86, and they were a little far gone. But, they were amazing. It was such an experience to to see them. Because again, it was like basically what you hear is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of that, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 again. But
just to get the historical perspective together here. So this was before you Hate Your Friends came out that this happened? Or?
Oh yeah. This is before Hate Your Friends, because basically the chronology is like, I guess June of '86. We graduated high school, recorded the first EP and a bunch of extra songs. I think that fall, we put out the first EP ourselves, actually with our friend Patrick.
I want a copy of that. Is there any copies of that?
I don't know. I'm told you can. I mean, Curtis did a bunch of unauthorized repressings of it, and I've heard about people buying it on eBay. I mean, I have.
Curtis did something unauthorized? Really?
Yeah, it's shocking, I know. But no, there are, basically there was an original run of 1,000, and out of those are long gone. I think the last couple ones that I have personally, I've given away as gifts, either when I was on, like last time Varsity Drag was on tour in Europe, I gave them to some people from our label and people who are really helpful in booking the tour. I gave one to Ryan Adams, may he rest in peace. So like they've all, I might have one left somewhere, but yeah, I think they're really hard to find.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. So
then then Hate Your Friends came out the following summer. So that'd be summer of '87, I think, is when Hate Your Friends came out.
And then, which was a great record. And then Creator, which I believe, I think you wrote most of the Creator. You and Evan wrote together on the first album, but on the second record, didn't you write most of the album?
They both. I mean, the overall count from, let's see, there's 4 records. There's the EP and the 3 albums. It's basically about 50-50 in terms of writing. Definitely, there's more of my songs on Creator, right? And there's more of Evan's songs on Hate Your Friends for sure. Because,
I have a clear vinyl copy of Creator. I also have Hate Your Friends. My Lick record, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared. But John Strom, man. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, John Strom, from the Blake Babies.
But close, Strom, I think, yeah.
From the Blake Babies actually joined up with you guys for the Creator record, correct?
Yeah, we basically once Doug joined up, suddenly we had 2 guitar players, and Evan and I could both trade off singing and doing harmonies. So we recorded a few more songs, and so Hate Your Friends is basically those first trio sessions plus a bunch of stuff we did with Doug. Okay, yeah. And then Doug moved on at a certain point in there. You know how it is with drummers. Doug is, he got a PhD in ethnomusicology, and he became a Buddhist monk. So he's a Buddhist teacher, and I guess he sort of does the monk thing.
Wow, interesting.
But yeah, so he moved on to bigger and better things than us, and we needed a drummer. So again, Evan and I could each drum in a pinch, but we were like, we both want to keep playing guitar because we'd worked everything out for 2 guitar parts. So so Strom, who is primarily a guitar player and a songwriter and a singer, he also was a drummer. He had started out in Bloomington, Indiana, playing drums in all kinds of hardcore bands. So he agreed to play drums with us as a fill-in. And of course, we loved that guy so much. It was a great configuration of the band. So we persuaded him to do that record with us, and he did one of our tours. And of course, he toured later with Lemonheads playing guitar, so he's played most instruments of the band. And of course, actually, there was a brief period of time, right around Lick, when the band Jesse left for a while, and I was playing bass. Evan was playing guitar, and John was playing drums, I think. Wow. Or no, maybe it was Evan on. It might have been Evan on drums, John on guitar, and me on bass. But we have the album that came out a couple of years ago, and a radio tape from WERS called "If Only You Were Dead." That's a recording of a radio session we did on ERS live, where I'm playing bass and I think Evan's playing drums.
You guys were truly an interchangeable band. I got to ask you this. I've got to ask you about this. Creator had some interesting covers on it, including the Kiss cover of Plaster Caster. But that's not the cover I want to ask you about. You guys covered a Charles Manson song. Okay?
Oh, and by you guys, let's be really clear. That is Evan all by himself.
I was going to say, I have a feeling that was Evan, but how in the world did that end up happening? How did you guys all come to the... I can understand how Curtis...
I got to be really clear on this point. We didn't all come to any kind of conclusion. Evan said, I'm going to play this Manson song, and we were all like, shrug, okay. I mean, it was him. Actually, he's playing a nylon string guitar that belonged to my mom. So Evan at the time, actually, and for some years afterwards, just had a Manson obsession. I mean, he and I used to rent this, or watch this Manson documentary from the local video store, and he was very, very preoccupied for a while there with everything having to do with the Manson family, and he got a copy of that bootleg album. I think they call it Lie, which is basically the Manson album,
right,
that he recorded, and he listened to a lot of songs off it, and the songs both on Lick and on Creator, and actually on his songs there's songs of his on Lovey and albums after that too, which have snippets of Manson lyrics in it. So that, like, Clang Bang Clang with the big iron door, that's from a Manson song. That ism. The whole lyric is, they put me in a cell with a concrete floor.
I didn't think for 1 minute, by the way, that you had anything to do with the Manson song. I knew it was Dando, but Evan Dando, but I wanted to ask about it because you're still part of the project, and I was wondering if there was any... I don't know. Was there negative feedback from that? Because I don't remember. I was working for a label myself.
Really.
You know,
it was a different in our little tribe, in our little corner of the. I mean, that's before, nowadays microculture has taken over to the point where, like, if you got 7 people, they can all be into something. But back then, the groups of microcultures were much bigger. So, I mean, in the world of kind of whatever you'd call it, indie rock, alternative rock, college rock, because this is all pre-Nirvana, basically nobody cared if you did that kind of stuff. I mean, nobody ever said anything. I mean, I remember we did our cover of Suzanne Vega's Luca, which is pretty much my fault, because when we were on tour, I was noodling on it. I kept realizing that you could play it with a drone, like a Husker Du song. And so if you play like an A and a B with the drone and go to E, you realize you're playing Luca. And I remember at the time that when we recorded it, we had one of those Halloween Sounds cassettes you could buy at CBS, and it was this weird screaming and yelling in the background. I remember when they layered that into the song, I was kind of uncomfortable, and I was like, this song is kind of about domestic violence, and we're putting screaming in the background. Doesn't that creep anyone out? And everyone was like, nope, just you, Deily. So I was like, okay, fuck it, who cares? Pardon my swearing. So anyway, I mean, the Manson thread, though, runs very strongly through a lot of that stuff. I think almost every one of Evan's songs on Creator has either lyrics from a Manson song or references to Manson, which if you were to footnote it all, you could,
that's
you knew the Manson material.
That's a whole show.
But
that's like a whole show right there. I didn't realize. I'm going to do a little research on that. But
I wouldn't go too deep down that rabbit hole, though, because I mean, I don't think being obsessed with Manson definitely was not something that does any good for anyone's mental health. So it was just one of those things. You're young, you get obsessed with weirdness. If you're into punk rock, everyone says, "Oh yeah, great." That's so.
Well, I got to know Evan pretty well for a while, and I know he's different. I don't know. Yeah. But let's get back to this, because I got to ask you about this. As the story goes, the band pretty much broke up after the Creator record, but then there was the Lick album that came out. Can you elaborate on that whole scenario? Because everyone says that you and Evan didn't get along and you just split up, but then you came back together.
It was never me and Evan. It was always me and Jesse, and it was me and the project, and it was my girlfriend at the time, who I did marry and was married to for 7 years, was really, really anti-band. Actually, my entire family, literally all of my parents, because I got two parents, each of whom are remarried. So every parent that I had was against the band. Everybody wanted me out of that band. And oh yeah. Oh God, what, are you kidding? It's like, you got this kid, he's going to college, he's hanging out with some people, not to specify, who are really into a lot of potentially dangerous, self-destructive stuff. You want that kid spending a lot of time with those people? Or do you say, hey, why don't you put this aside and kind of move on with your life? So there was constant, intense pressure on me, more or less from the beginning, to get out and get on with things.
So it's not true that you and Evan didn't get along? That's just something that...
Well, I mean, none of us got along after a while, because it's a band. I mean,
right.
There's no surer way to get people sick of each other than put them in a band together for a few years, especially if you were touring in vehicles. And so, I mean, yeah, there was crankiness, but I mean, Evan was always quitting the band. Evan quit, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, I think, when I was in the band. He joined the Blake Babies for a while. Jesse would quit sometimes. I don't remember if I ever actually quit until I actually quit, which was because we had a conflict between, we were supposed to do a European tour. Tickets were being purchased, and I had a symposium on William Butler Yeats, the Anglo-Irish poet, and it was in Sligo, in Ireland, and I was going to go hell or high water, because I got a special letter to recommend me there from one of my professors, and it conflicted with the tour, and I'm like, that's it, I'm out. I'm not going on the tour. And then once they got back from the tour, and we cemented that I wasn't going to be playing with the band anymore. But again, by then I transferred to another school, and I was trying very hard to be serious about my quote unquote academic career. And again, I had a significant other in my life who, she threw Evan out of the house, because Evan and I had lived together for years, and she just got sick of his particular brand of shenanigans and his lifestyle, and threw him out. So, that was definitely a wedge.
I like how you politically correctly describe some of these things. It's great. So basically, there really wasn't Lick wasn't really, even though Ever and Anyway, I believe, was the other track, and you might have had a third track too on that record. It wasn't really a band at that time that you were in when the Lick record came out, was it?
Yeah, I can't quite remember when it came out, but I mean, when we were working on it, I mean, a lot of that stuff, as you can probably see if you look at the credits, I think a lot of it was previously recorded. Like some of the stuff was stuff that we had recorded back in 86 or 87.
Like Luca was recorded way before Lick came out.
Yeah,
correct?
but I mean, but Ever was recorded with some of our first sessions that we ever did.
Wow, what took so long for that song to come out? Because that's one of your most famous songs.
I think Jesse thought it was, what's a polite word for pussy song? He thought I don't think he cared for it. If I remember, I could be wrong. If memory serves, it was the same with Postcard, the acoustic original that I had on Creator. That basically, there were members of the band, I seem to remember, particularly Jesse, were very dead set against it. I remember him saying something like, "Oh, we got this acoustic love ballad. You're going to play that, for the skinheads at our next all ages show. What's the matter with you?" So, it is ironic that the band ended up turning into a kind of acoustic pop outfit, because back then, when I first was bringing stuff like that in, it was not well received. But I mean, Evan and I, again, since Evan and I lived together, playing guitars all the time, doing whatever. But when it came to material for the band, there was there was an early attempt right around Creator to make sure that nothing like that ever got on one of our records, but we got it on anyway. So along with the Manson too. So,
I'm sure my listeners are learning as much as I'm learning right now, because I had no idea that Jesse Perez had that much influence in the band. I always thought it was.
We were an equal partnership. I mean, he was amazing. There would have been no band without him, because he did everything. I mean, logistically, I would say that he probably booked every recording session we ever did. He booked nearly every gig we ever did before we had management. I mean, this guy, Len, I'm just saying, he carried us on his back. I mean, he really did. I mean,
and
Evan
now
and
he's
I
a
were
famous
sort of,
director. Boy, that makes sense, doesn't it? It really does.
a very talented one.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just funny, because I think that we brought him in, again, because he owned a bass, but also because we were all friends. We were all into the same kind of music. But, I mean, Evan and I were ostensibly the creative side of things, and he was the everything else side of things, and there would have been absolutely no band without Jesse. So in that sense, Jesse absolutely had a right to draw a line and say, hey, we're not doing any acoustic love ballads on Lemonheads records. But I was pretty cranky about it at the time, certainly, because I was like, hey, I like the song. I said, it's like Here Comes a Regular.
You guys were young.
That doesn't belong on the Replacements album. So
right. Plus, you guys were pretty young at that time as well. I mean, you guys were like barely 21 by then, right? I mean,
I think I was 19. Yeah,
19. So, there you go. Now you have 3 great songs on the Lick album, as we said, and one of them we heard earlier in the show, Ever. It's still one of the most popular Lemonhead songs. I mean, other bands have covered it. You did it with your next band. Do you take a positive? Can you look back now at those 3 records and that experience and take something positive out of the whole thing?
Oh, I don't think I've ever not felt positive about it. I mean, I was always proud of the stuff we did, and I certainly always felt like, I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's any songs from back then by me or Evan or anyone that I don't like. I mean, I think all the songs that we didn't like in their original versions, we altered them enough that we came to like them by the time we decided to record them.
Right.
So there were like early versions of songs that I won't go into that had like really inappropriate lyrics that we ended up rewriting, and luckily they've been lost to history, so no one can come back and cancel us. But I was always proud of all that stuff, I think.
Didn't you and Evan, I'm pretty sure I heard that you guys did end up playing together, at least a gig or something years later?
Lots of times. I played a couple of years ago. I played like 3 or 4 shows in a row with Lemonheads. We played at a big, what was that thing called? Outside the Box Festival. It was on Boston Common. We played that. Then we played in Providence. Then we played in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, I remember hearing you did. So that was fun when you reunited?
Yeah. I mean, we'd been playing together for years before that, but just, in my kitchen or whatever. But yeah, I think the first show that we played in public together was like South by Southwest in 2011. I think it was just the 2 of us. He was doing an acoustic thing, and I came up and did some songs.
Wow. Jesse had nothing to do with any of these reunion shows, though, did he?
I don't think he's really, like, as you said, he's got a big
career,
fancy career going on, doing amazing stuff. So he's not, I don't think he is really interested in doing music stuff these days. So but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I wonder, I mean, every once in a while someone has asked something about, would Jesse be interested in, playing again? And I kind of think no, but he'd have to answer that himself. But
yeah, he's pretty busy.
Exactly.
You graduated from Harvard, which is no small task, by the way. During that time, you had like 3 releases, I believe, with the Pods as well, correct?
It was, let me see. We had at least 2. We put out, there was an EP. The first thing we did was a 7-inch EP. And again, that was, That was our friend Anthony DeLuca, who was in the Swirlies and
he's a lawyer
a bunch
now.
of other bands, and he decided to, he liked our stuff. He said, "Look, I want to put together, a sort of record label. I want to put out the 7-inch." So he did that, and then we did a full-length CD a little while after that. I think you're right. I think all of that might have been, I don't know. Yeah, I think that was probably all before I actually graduated, but you got to remember I was running around doing a lot of things. It took me a lot more years to graduate than it should have.
Well,
I was always taking leaves of absence,
Yeah, I can't take too much credit because I will admit I go to Wikipedia a lot when I'm trying to get information, and I probably got that on Wikipedia. But I just thought that was interesting, and I wanted to mention it. Years later, in around 2006, you formed Varsity Drag, and before we talk about that, we're going to play a song. In fact, we're going to play what I would say is one of the coolest songs ever. This is Billy Ruane from Varsity Drag on the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast.
250cc's rolling down Mass Avenue. Sicko sign is flashing down. Taillights barely hanging on. You know and I know that it's been way too long. Where are you going, stranger? Better hang on tight. You know the dance is never ending. You wanna see your friends tonight. That suit might need a cleaning, but it's alright. Just ain't the same without Billy Ruane. 'Cause he always knows your name, got Billy Ruane. And it's just a goddamn shame without Billy Ruane. And there ain't no one to blame, but the place just ain't the same. Dancing around in Kenmore Square, down on Lansdowne every night, staggering out of TT's underneath 1,000 stars. Channel is gone, man, the rehab closed down. Where are you going, Billy? Where you right ahead now? You know the dance is never ending. I wanna see your face tonight. That suit might need a cleaning, but it's alright. But the place just ain't the same without Billy Ruane. 'Cause he always knows your name, that Billy Ruane. And it's just a crying shame without Billy Ruane. And there ain't no one to blame, but the place just ain't the same. Keep it loud, keep it raw. The best dressed drunk I ever saw.
That was Billy Ruane from Varsity Drag on Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I just absolutely love that tune, and it has taken on a whole new meaning since we lost our friend, Mr. Ruane, who I was good friends with. I went to his funeral. It was the biggest funeral I ever went to in my life, I got to say. There were so many people there. Can you tell us, Ben, how that song all came about? Because it's become really bigger, I think, since Billy passed away. Tell us about when you wrote it, how you wrote it, the whole story behind it.
Sure, I'd love to. I mean, basically, to find the beginnings of Varsity Drag, you actually got to go back a few years before we managed to get it together or rather, our label in the UK, God bless them, Boss Tunage, put out the first record. Because in the late 90s in San Francisco, I started playing music with a bunch of guys, very talented. They're in a band now called Propeller, which you can look up if you ever want. But these guys, Greg and Will, and various drummers who came and went. And so we started playing. They had a rehearsal space in a shipping container, one of those things, for intermodal shipping. You put it on the back of an 18-wheeler, and it was right across the street from San Quentin. So you take the exit, for San Quentin, but instead of going, to the left to San Quentin, you go to the right. There was a big parking lot full of shipping containers. And so we'd play there at least once a week, maybe twice a week. And so we were all bringing songs, and living in San Francisco at the time, I remember going out to shows sometimes and just feeling like, this is not Boston. This is nothing like Boston. And I remember so much of that ended up feeling like this longing for, that special Boston feeling. And so much of that was in the person of Billy Ruane. And I was thinking, this place has got no Billy Ruane. This place has nothing like that. No offense to San Francisco. Awesome town, great bands. But that was where that song came out of just kind of a mournful longing for Billy and for Boston and for all of that. And so you're right. I mean, of course, it ends up, now that he's passed on, it ends up sounding like an epitaph. But at the time, it was just like, wanting to be back in Boston, wanting to be back where people like Billy were, and Billy in particular, just because he's so emblematic of the people that make a music scene work.
Right.
I mean, and there's no one like him, and there never will be. But I mean, someone who cares that much, someone who gives that much, someone who's got that much enthusiasm. It's just, there's nothing like it, and so that's where that song came from.
I love the bridge, man, at the end of the song. I mean, the song is brilliant, and then you have the bridge, man. It's just so...
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm going to say
that's
it's so
kind.
Fucking cool. I don't usually use the F word, but I have to this time. And I watched that. Thankfully, there's a video of you guys doing it at church in Boston on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about your YouTube page before we let you go here. So I know you're pretty entrenched right now in your career. I guess you're in advertising. Is that what you're in there?
Yeah. Ostensibly, I'm a creative director. My primary thing that I do is copywriting, kind of ideas and concepts and writing, versus like art direction, which is the other side of the creative thing that we do.
Right.
But yeah, I've been doing that. It was the job that for some reason, I got this idea in my head when I was like a kid that I thought, okay, I'd like to be in advertising. And so when I actually managed to land a job by just like dumb luck, whenever it was, a zillion years ago, I found that I really did love it, and I've just stuck with it. I mean, every once in a while, I think about doing something else, and I'll take a break from the industry for a little while, and I always end up coming back just because it's really interesting.
Well, I didn't ask you this at all. I don't even know. Do you even still live in Massachusetts? Are you still in the Boston area?
I am. We maintain a permanent footprint in the Boston area, and actually I am currently in Massachusetts in an undisclosed location. But yeah, we are. I mean, we move around, or we sometimes we definitely have spent, like the last bunch of years, we spent a bunch of time in Hollywood. We were living there for a bunch of years, and Lisa and I previously lived in Cripes, like 10, 15 years ago. We lived in Burbank, home of the Tonight Show.
I lived in Encino. I lived in Encino, which is not too far from Burbank or Hollywood.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
I tell you what, again, L.A., great place for bands, and even though obviously, like everywhere, the venues have been vanishing the last few years, there are still a lot of great places, a lot of great weird, like all ages spaces, and real like nightclubs and stuff. But
I miss LA. I do. I miss it.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, just a couple more things. I know you released a single and an unbelievably cool video for the song "The Night" in 2017, which I totally loved it, man. Are you gonna do anything else musically? I have to ask that question.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, here's the candid story: is that there's been Evan and I have been talking years and years about doing some, because we would get together, we'll always play guitars. We say, yeah, let's do another record, but a million things always end up conspiring to make it not happen. And I mean, I wrote when Ryan Adams, whenever the hell it was, 5-7 years ago or something. My memory ain't what it. Actually, my memory was never anything. It's always been terrible. But anyway, this guy Ryan Adams said, hey, I want to produce a new Lemonheads record. I want Ben, I want Evan, I want Juliana Hatfield. So we all went to LA and went to his studio, Pax Am, and he was playing drums. And we tried to, anyway, as pre-production for that, I wrote a whole bunch of songs and recorded demos, sent them to Ryan, sent them to everyone else, and we actually recorded one of them. It's on a shelf, presumably, in his thing. But yeah, I mean, basically those songs in one form or another have been sitting around kind of waiting to happen, and that's probably not going to happen. So eventually I'm gonna probably just do my own versions of them and release them.
Juliana, that's like a dream thing right there. Juliana Hatfield, Evan Dando, and you together with Ryan Adams. Come on, man. You gotta find a way to put that out, man.
Well, hey, it's in his hands. I mean, it potentially could have been something very interesting. But I mean, Juliana wrote some amazing songs for those sessions, and almost all of those ended up on her on the Juliana Hatfield 3 reunion record that they did a couple years ago. So
she puts a record out every year. I mean, she's
awesome,
unbelievable, man.
No, I mean, it's so talented and very thoughtful about how to pre-fund something and get it so that it's actually going to come out. And again, she has a great fan base and she takes care of them. So. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of songs, and that song you were talking about, "The Night," was just one of my favorite bands of all time. Is the Blue Nile from Scotland, and so I always wanted to do a song that sounded like that. And so sitting in my place in LA, working from home, had a little time on my hands, so I tried to figure out how to. I mean, I can't work gear, I can't work synthesizers, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. My brother Jono's the expert, so I just sort of cobbled together this thing, and I just tried to create this Blue Nile kind of mood. And then I was like, well, no one will watch anything or listen to it unless it has visuals. So I just did all one take of me walking around the apartment, lip syncing the thing, and I threw it up on the internet.
Fantastic.
And, you're very generous to say so. That's
well, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'd love to do. I was going to say I'd love to do more stuff like that. I mean, always, even back in. I mean, it's funny. My tastes don't tend to change that much. Like, love synth pop in the '80s. Love synth pop when I was doing Lemonheads. Still do, and I keep thinking I got to make a record like that if I can figure out how to make the keyboards work.
I can't wait.
Because
a lot of
the songs like "Second Chance," the Lemonheads. I mean, that was written on a piano. I mean, I have versions of some of those songs done where they sound like Depeche Mode or something. So, like back then.
It's funny you bring that song up because I have that in my last paragraph here because I want to plug your YouTube page, which has some fantastic stuff on it, and including great live videos, including the performance of Billy Ruane, and even some Lemonhead classics redone by Varsity Drag, like Second Chance. I actually had that here. The page is called Dub.
Dubatanda, like that's right. That's why no one will find it. De omnibus dubatandum est. It means everything must be doubted. it's so, I mean, Dubatandem was what I put in there because I didn't want my name on it when I was setting up my account for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know how many Ivy League guests I can have on my show that are going to give me words.
It's funny.
Like this.
It's all my dad's fault. My dad used to yap. Like, I never learned any Latin in school, but my dad was always yapping in Latin. I realize I have to say one thing, especially for running low on time, is that in L.A., speaking of awesome L.A. bands, there's a band called the Rain Man Suite. And the Rain Man Suite are awesome. You should look them up and listen to their stuff. They've been putting out records for a bunch of years now. They're a super talented bunch of people. Their drummer actually played a couple shows with us. Lisa and I played a few shows in LA a couple years ago when we were there. So again, the Rain Man Suite is a band worth checking out.
And I just want to say one other thing. I also like the video of your wife, Lisa, that's on that page. It was really cool that when she was an actress, the whole thing, just really cool stuff on.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's awesome. You know, she's writing now a lot, and this year, I don't know if there's something they do every year called the Boston Theater Marathon, and she had a play selected for it, and they performed it. Obviously, they had to do it over Zoom rather than on a stage, but since then, it's been published. So she's now a published playwright, which is kind of awesome, and she's working on all kinds of stuff now. She's got one wacky play set in the 1790s that's in New England that's about a real place called Pest Island, and she's always got amazing ideas. I don't know where they come from, but she's out there slugging. So,
well, hey man, thank you very much, Ben, for coming on the show. I wanted to get you on for a while, and I really appreciate it. And whatever you do in the future, I'm interested in, and I'm sure our audience feels the same way. So, thank you very much, man. Good luck to you.
Thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate it. Everybody, wear a goddamn mask. Don't travel if you don't have to. For the love of God, it's a year or two out of your life. It's not worth killing people. I have lost people to this who are now dead. So please behave yourselves, and love to everyone. And
good, yeah. Great party words.
If I've maligned anyone or misremembered anything, people should call or write in and say, Ben is full of crap. None of that ever happened, because it's perfectly possible. My mind is just,
You got a great mind, dude. You got a great mind. Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you, man, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye, Ben.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was something. Okay, so next week, it's going to be hard to top, but we're going to try. We'll have Greg Allen making a return performance to the show, and we're going to totally geek out on the great musical period from 1970 to 73, which when you hear the number of unbelievable records that came out during that time, you'll understand why we're geeking out on the 70 to 73 period. As I always say, it's really important that we support the mom and pop stores, the independent stores out there like Baby Loves Tacos, who we mentioned at the beginning of the show. There's a whole list of them. They're in your town, they're in your neighborhood. It could be JLS Design in Leicester, Mass, or the Moonbeam Cafe in Oakmont, PA, or the Book Lovers Gourmet in Webster, Mass. Record Archive in Rochester, wherever. These people really need you, and I'm trying my best here to make a point about these fine establishments because they need us now more than ever. So, whether it's takeout food or ordering merch or buying a new record or whatever, keep these small businesses going. Same goes for our friend here that engineers our show, Nick Z, here at New Alliance East in Somerville, Mass. If you need something mastered, you want to record, get in touch with Nick. He's a good guy. He's doing a great job on our show, so he'll do a great job with you. And I want to thank all our patrons who continue to support the podcast. You can go to patreon.com/Twisted Rico, and you can support us on a monthly basis for as low as $1 a month. I'd love to have you. I just set up a new Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico Instagram page. It's at Blowing Smoke with TR. And I'm going to post a lot of photos there on things that, videos, whatever, that haven't been anywhere else, because I want to really focus on that. You can also find us on Facebook at, we have a Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico page there. And if you want to write me and ask questions or comments, or even say something that, talk about what Ben just talked about, it's twistedrico@gmail.com. We're going to keep you going, man. We're going to keep the guests coming, and we're going to fight We're going to fight real hard in the face of this pandemic, and we're going to keep the rock and roll alive, okay? This is Steve Ricardo. You've been listening to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. Till the next time we say goodbye, let's just keep the rock alive. And, as I always say, I don't know if she's listening, but we love you, Busy Phillips. Thank you, and good night.